£150 million hole in their finances over the next 4 years.
The authority says that means 9 refuges for victims of domestic violence face closure. Our correspondent Amy Welsh has been to one of those under threat.
Battered and bruised, these images of Jane Clough are what makes her parents so determined to stop other women being abused.
When Jane became a victim of domestic abuse, I think it blew away our concepts of what domestic abuse was and who it happened to. And really we've learnt that domestic abuse can affect anybody. You know, we were parents and we were there for Jane and we did our best to keep her safe. But there are people out there who don't even have parents to go to. They have no one to go to.
Jane was stabbed 71 times by her ex-boyfriend, who was on bail charged with her rape. They say victims of domestic violence need more support, not less. And today backed their MP's calls to stop cuts to refuge services.
Does the Prime Minister agree with the Clough family and me that Labour-run Lancashire County Council should prioritise the victims of domestic violence?
If they aren't there, how are these vulnerable people going to move on? How are they going to survive?
9 refuges in Lancashire are facing closure as part of budget cuts the Labour-run council say have been forced upon them by a Tory government. Campaigners say women will die if these services are forced to close. Do you, as a council, want that on your conscience?
Of course I don't, and I think that's, you know, nobody would want that, would they? But the fact is, I haven't alone got the money. It is heartbreaking, but the fact is we are suffering relentless cuts.
This is one of 3 refuges on the Fylde coast, which between them helped 52 families last year. If these cuts go ahead, at least 2 of these refuges may have to close, and the women they support say they've nowhere else to go.
It was horrible. It was horrific. I was an object, but I wasn't a person.
Sophie came here 12 weeks ago after suffering a decade of abuse.
They saved my life, very much so. If it wasn't for these people, I can say I definitely wouldn't be here.
What are children's social care going to do with women and children fleeing domestic abuse on a Friday evening when they can't call a refuge? Where are these women going to go? What is going to happen to them?
Lancashire County Council say they will do all they can to keep the refuges open and are establishing a £3 million prevention and early help fund. But with the refuge funding due to end next March, time is running out. Amy Welch, ITV News, Preston.
Well, earlier I was joined by Eve Thomas, who suffered domestic abuse herself and campaigns on behalf of victims. I asked her what difference a refuge can make for those trying to leave an abusive relationship.
Refuges are crucial, they're crucial lifelines. They are sanctuary for an awful lot of women, men and children. They not only offer that lifeline and that sanctuary and that place to go to flee from the abuse and the violence.
But do you accept that councils have limited resources, there's huge pressure on them, and some of these services will have to take a hit?
They do, yeah. Some services do have to take hits, and I mean, we've seen it across mental health, we've seen it across the domestic abuse sector, we've seen it across every sector in the UK. But we have to have refuges. If we don't have refuges, we will have more murders. Crime's up anyway where domestic abuse is concerned. It's not going down, it's going up. We have 1 woman murdered every 3 days, 1 man every 14. And we have to ask ourselves, every domestic violence homicide is not only a life, but it costs approximately £1.5 million. So we need to be putting the money into refuges. They are lifelines and they are crucial.
Couldn't there more be done to protect the victims and their children in their own home?
Yes, more should be done. We should be focusing on the perpetrator. We need to be putting robust interventions in there to keep victims safe. Why should a victim and the children have to leave the family home? So yes, we should be making that as safe as possible. We need better interventions.
We've had new laws, new legislation for those in controlling situations, controlling relationships. Is the worry that if people have nowhere to go, that law isn't going to be of any use?
I mean, we're now seeing quite disastrous results of victims that have gone to the police to report, and this coercive control is not being seen. That, of course, as soon as the victim enters the criminal justice system, as soon as the victim leaves, that's increased risk straight away.
So is your message today that
This needs government funding,
Yes.
government protection to save lives.
Yes, the government say that they really take domestic abuse and domestic violence seriously. I think that we need to be seeing that, because we're not seeing it at this moment in time. We're seeing cuts in the police service, we're seeing cuts across refuges, mental health services. This is a massive problem. We're a country in crisis.
Eve, thank you very much indeed for talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Next on Granada